Welcome to the Dev Launch Podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories of the tech industry's rising stars. Today, my guest is Tamara Lucas, who is the CEO and founder of My Panda. Now, My Panda's mission is to be the village of support for busy women everywhere. As a non-technical founder, Tamara comes to the table with a very unique and important perspective that is shaping her tech startup and the future of the hyperlocal gig economy. Let's take a listen. Tamara, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tony. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited that you are here. And I was telling you this morning, I was speaking you up to my wife because what you guys are doing with My Panda is exactly what my wife, I'd argue right now needs, but especially what she needed a year ago when our twins came into the world.
Yeah, so, I can imagine. That's basically why we exist, because there are so many people just like you guys.
Yes, and I think it's brilliant. I love what you guys are doing. We're going to get into a little bit more about exactly what you're doing. But before I start with some of those questions, do you want to just give us a little brief snippet of what My Panda is and what makes it a unique platform?
Yeah, sure. So My Panda is the personal assistant next door app, which is a fun little acronym that kind of came into existence. And so what we do is we are hyper local, and our target market really is busy women that just have way too many expectations placed on them, and just like we're not meant to do it alone, right? We are human beings meant to live in community, but in this day and age, we don't. Right? We have these sort of independent lives and our friends are as busy as we are. So what we do is we tap into the hyperlocal community and we hire our pandas, our personal assistants next door. And we interview them, background check them. They're very carefully vetted. And then our busy users use our mobile app to submit requests for everyday things. So it's personal assistant things. So we don't really do handyman things or deep cleanings or things like that. But picking the dog up at the vet, or folding the laundry, or doing meal prep and planning, swapping out the kids' clothes. So those sorts of things. So the users put in the requests, and it goes out to the group of pandas that are assigned to their service area. And we call our service areas groves, like bamboo groves.
Love it.
So we kind of keep playing up on that. So anyway,
great.
That's what we do. It's really about bringing community together and helping support busy people, women primarily, but some men do use us as well. And then we also, on the flip side, give our pandas the opportunity to really have some well-paid work with close to home. They can really get a sense of satisfaction helping people. So it really is a value proposition on both sides.
Yeah. And I love that it really is targeting the gig economy, because, it's not like, it doesn't necessarily need to be the full-time job, but it can be the little gigs on the side. But the idea of it being hyper local, that is something that I think is very unique.
Yes.
You talk about it in some of your guys' materials, but working kind of close by something like a next door, it's kind of like a similar concept.
Yep.
But even what you said, I thought was just so profound about the fact that we need to kind of get back to our roots of we're a community, right? And
yes.
There was a day and age where it was really common for people to share those types of burdens together as a community. But I think in our Western society, I mean, you can speak to this better than I could, but in our Western society, for the most part, we've lost that. And so I love what you guys are doing. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and it wasn't even that long ago, really. I mean, It's really just been the last couple of generations. 100 years ago, we were living with extended family, and everyone pooled the resources, and things are switching so quickly, and we're not prepared. And not only are we being more isolated and away from support systems, but as women, we have that whole thing of having to do everything, right? Do everything, like Wonder Woman sort of thing, where not only do we have to have the best job and be doing an amazing job there, we've got to be taking great care of our children. We've got to be in good shape. Our house looks amazing. Our husband and us, we need to have an amazing relationship, or, our friends need us, our community, all of these things. And it's just not possible.
Mm-hmm. So. That's right. Yeah, we weren't made to do this alone. That is for sure. Nope. Not at all. So Tamara, like many of my previous guests, you have a very unique trajectory that's brought you to the point of being a founder of a tech company. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about that career journey?
yeah, it's really long, so I'll just hit the highlights.
Okay.
I have a psychology and social work background. I have a master's in social work. That really stems from this underlying just drive and desire I have to help people. And I mean, that's why I got my degree in psychology in undergrad, because I was like, I'm already helping my friends all the time. I might as well have jobs that pay me to do this. So, it's just that sense of helping and trying to make the world a better place has been with me since forever. In the midst of having this career in social work and special education, I got a chance to live in Italy for a short amount of time. In a year and a half it ended up being. So that was amazing. And that's part of the really, really long story. We won't get into that. But then I came back from that, and it was the middle of a school year. So I was like, well, I'm not going to go back into teaching. I found a job listing for an Italian food and wine distributor. And so I jumped into wine distribution at that point with the intention of it just being a little short-term thing. But then I ended up loving it. It was way better to go out selling wine to restaurants and fine wine shops than getting up at 5:30 in the morning, going to teach special ed children, which is like making the world a better place, but it was really demanding. So my bulk of my career was in wine and spirit sales and management, portfolio management, that sort of thing. And then I'm a single mom. I got divorced about a little over 10 years ago. And so I was super crazy busy, right? I was doing wine jobs. I had a couple other things on the side to make a little extra money, just stressed out. And then the whole idea of My Panda came about when I was just talking to a friend of mine who was working as a dog walker, and she was in my neighborhood, and she made the comment that, God, these people need so much more than just a dog walk. Like if they would just throw me $20, I would clean up that disaster of a kitchen. And I was like, can I throw you $20 so you clean up my disaster? Because that's what I need. And so, that's kind of where it all kind of came from. So it was just it was out of a need of myself. And then also I saw so many people in my community that needed this sort of help. And there were people like my friend who have the time and availability and desire to help. And she's walking by my house every day anyway. She might as well just stop in and spend 45 minutes helping out. So that whole idea started to come about. And then at that point we were like, well, yeah, I mean, we should just have an app or something probably, right? Having no idea what that meant. I'm like when you say non-technical, like I am so far on the extreme. I've learned so much in the last few years, but I didn't even understand what a wireframe was. I didn't understand anything. But I was fortunate enough to stumble across my tech team that's still working with me, and I interviewed them at the very beginning, and they kind of helped hold my hand and pull me through. And so then it just started to build from there. And I realized soon after I started talking to people about it that this wasn't just going to be something just in my neighborhood here in Decatur, Georgia. This is going to be something that has to be much, much bigger, because everybody I talked to about it was like, oh my gosh, when can you come to Colorado? Wait, are you going to be in New York? When you come to Florida? And I was like, whoa, I was just going to be in my neighborhood. So that got me on the steps that I'm in now, getting in the ecosystem and different programs, and led to like things like Techstars and whatnot. So wow. That's my little synopsis.
That's a great synopsis. Can you help us peg the years? Because obviously, like in your mind, it's probably a lot of the blurs together. But I know you were in wine sales for quite a while. But in what year did that kind of epiphany moment happen?
Yeah, that was in 2018.
Okay.
So, and I had started in the wine business in 2001.
Okay.
I came back from Italy in 2000. So, and then prior in the 90s, I was in social work and teaching.
Okay.
So, so that was in 2018. And then I started just testing it out. It was just like very basic things in 2018. Like I put out a couple of Facebook posts in my neighborhood group and just started to just see if people would want to do things. I was doing all the jobs. And then as it started to grow, I started to have to get some friends to help me. And then also by the time 2019 came around, I was like, whoa, I think I need to actually start to get some support. So that's when we raised a small friends and family round, and the app was launched in September 2019. So I consider that our launch.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and that's a good time frame, right? Like idea in 2018 to launch in 2019. Like some people would hear that and they'd be like, "Oh, that took a long time." It's like in tech, though, that's a good turnaround.
Yeah, I didn't have any intention of having this be a fast growth startup. Like that wasn't my thing at all. It's just I started playing with the idea, and then the response was so great, and so it just sort of like kind of happened like that.
Yeah.
And then of course COVID happened, which I mean, if that had not had happened, I think we'd be a way different place than we are right now.
Yeah.
But it was fine. We pivoted and got through some of it, but it wasn't horrible, but it was different.
And we are going to talk a little bit more about that later in the show when we just talk about like growth and like kind of the trajectory for My Panda. I do want to get to that, but before we get there, one thing I want to better understand in your journey is like, did you feel like you always had that entrepreneurial bug, or was there something during your career that kind of stirred entrepreneurship up in you?
So, no, I would not have considered myself an entrepreneur early on. Like I really was just like, I'm going to help people. My dad was a veterinarian. He had his own practice. So he was a small business owner. My mom was really creative. She helped him with the business, but she also painted and wrote some children's books and did things and really big in photography and things like that. But she didn't, she did publish a couple of those books on her own. But so it's that small business sort of thing is in my family. But I will say in my wine distribution job, I did kind of create a job within the company. Like I saw a need of there were some portfolios that were just being neglected, some of our best importers. And I just saw that need. It was so strong and I knew we were lacking in our execution. And so I created a job. I went to my boss and I'm like, this is what I think I could do. Created a job. So, looking back on it, I think that actually was sort of my first real entrepreneurial step. I did little things as a kid, like lemonade stands and stuff, but nothing really significant. But having that, when I had that job that I created and that I sort of was establishing my own course, it was very hard for me really from that point on when I really started thinking about it to all of a sudden start doing what other people wanted me to do. And then I was like, no, this is like what I want to be doing. This is what needs to be done. And the company I was working for got acquired by another larger company, and then everything changed, and that's when I left. And so I did after that start to I started a small group of 4 Virginia wineries and started that collective. So I was sort of growing Virginia wine as a whole through these 4 different wineries. One of them happens to be my family's winery, which is a whole other conversation. But that was my next big step into like sort of entrepreneur. I still didn't consider entrepreneurial, but I just was something that needed to be done, and I started to step in to do it. So it was a couple blips like that.
One could argue though, like that's kind of one of the core elements of entrepreneurship is the ability to recognize a need that's going unmet and step in a meaningful way to address that. That's at the core of what entrepreneurship is. And I love how your story highlights how many of us who walk in an entrepreneurial way, many of us start in an entrepreneurial fashion, right? Like in your example, you saw that there's these accounts that were being neglected and you said, I want to make sure that this is getting addressed. And so you kind of essentially created that job and that focus for yourself.
Totally. Yep.
But then also what you said, I was like, it resonates with me because I experienced that same thing, which is once you start kind of creating the box yourself, you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to have other people tell me where the box is.
No, very much not. It's similar to once you get introduced to good wines, like you can't drink bad wines anymore. It's like once you've been transitioned, it's a very similar sort of feeling for me. Like I just can't drink really bad wines now. I just can't. I won't do it. And so like same thing. Like I don't know how I would do it if I had to go back to having a boss tell me what to do.
I get that. I mean, it's the entrepreneur's blessing, but also our curse.
Yes, because it's hard.
That's right.
It's up to you to figure it out.
Yeah, that is very, very true. So as we look at your experience, you're kind of coming through, you spent a lot of time in sales and marketing, but you also started your career off in social work. So I'd say like those two things are a very unique skill set to bring into a tech business. So what I'm really curious to understand better is like, in what ways do you think those experiences, both in social work as well as with these different wineries in sales and marketing, in what ways do you think those have given you an advantage as you've been leading My Panda?
Yeah. Well, the ability to understand people and people's motivations. I mean, my business is very much of a people business, right? I mean, if I was just doing like some sort of fintech, like something that wasn't dealing with people, like it wouldn't resonate the same way.
Mm.
But you know, we step in and help families and individuals and people like identify things in their lives that need help and help step in to make changes in that. And so much of that comes from psychology and social work.
Mm.
And also just understanding how systems work together, how communities work together. And that all is a huge driving force underneath what drives my panda. And then the sales and marketing, right? That's understanding how to get people to give you money, basically. But that's hard too, because like selling wine and to fine wine stores is a very different thing than developing social media marketing campaigns and like funnels, and it's very different. But it's just sort of that understanding, the innate understanding of what drives people. I think it's a huge part of it.
Yeah. And I mean, as you look back now on your experience, I mean, I don't know if this had ever crossed your mind, but like while you were in the middle of working in the winery space or the wine business, did you ever look back on social work and say like, oh, it was maybe just like a detour in the wrong direction? Or had you always just really believed that was exactly what you needed to do at that part of your life?
Oh, yeah, I never thought it was a detour in the wrong
Okay.
direction at all. No,
Okay.
it was exactly what I needed to do.
And that's awesome. I the reason I ask that is I've had some conversations with friends of mine who they lament over seasons of their life where they're like, oh, I was off track here, or I didn't get the right experience that I needed. And I think what I'm finding as I have more conversations with entrepreneurs like yourself is I don't think any of that stuff is wasted time, right? I mean,
No,
especially social work.
no, well, I mean, but I believe on a very, very deep level that I mean, it's the whole thing. It sounds sort of cliche, but like every step that you've taken has gotten you right here. Like, but
Hmm.
I really do believe that. I mean, I believe everything. I mean, yeah, there might be some things you regret doing, like that was a stupid thing, but like even with like relationships that you're like, oh, what was I thinking? Like every relationship you learn from, right? Whether it's a friend or romantic relationship or whatever, and you know, and every experience that you have is a thing. And I don't have time for lamenting or regretting.
Hmm.
That goes against my like just sheer existence.
Yeah. I get it.
So
I get
yeah,
it. And
yeah.
that's I think that's great. And I think it's something that probably helps you to fuel your passion and moving forward as you're not kind of weighed down by those things. But I just want to affirm, like, I think, like you said, even the thought of how social work gives you a framework for thinking about how communities come together. Like
Mhm.
that is integral in how you guys structure and like go to market with My Panda. Is like you understand the underpinnings of how societies kind of come together, especially local communities.
Yeah, very much so. Very much
That's
so.
that's really really good. So now switching gears a little bit, as a non-technical founder of a tech company, talk to me about some of the unique obstacles that you've faced. And they could be either tech related or other aspects of leading this business.
Yeah. I mean, just the learning curve in and of itself, right? Like if you have a basic understanding of how to develop an app, like you could just jump in, you can skip all of the learning stuff, right? So like when I've been doing a lot of stuff, it takes me a lot of energy to really dive in and get even the basic understanding of stuff that's for some people it's just like second nature, right? I mean, like for me, like you can talk to me about different grape varieties and Loire Valley versus Alsace, and like all that is like like I understand it so well, whereas some people like wouldn't know that at all. And then I remember one time, even at the beginning of, like I was googling if like the difference between a balance sheet and profit and loss statement, like basic stuff, right? Like I'd been in business, but I wasn't, even with my wine thing. It was like I just was sort of just doing stuff, right? It wasn't like I was
Mm.
doing any of the like that business sort of stuff. So I mean, I was growing things and I was solving problems and I was interacting and doing that sort of stuff. But so it was like really just basic stuff that if I had a business degree, it would have been second nature. So it's been a lot of things like that that just have required energy and time. But there's so many resources and programs, and I've really leaned into all of those. I mean, it's been, going through the Start Me program, which is through Emory, doing the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative through Invest Atlanta, Techstars. I've done Launchpad 2X. There's all these different things. And a lot of them are geared towards women entrepreneurs too, which has been really great because that's helped me further develop my community, and which is an amazing community here in the Atlanta ecosystem and beyond Atlanta. But so anyway, the time and energy that goes into those things, that I think was probably like the biggest obstacle. But I mean, I'm smart and I can figure stuff out, right? None of this stuff is rocket science. It's just a matter of like, oh, okay, I don't know this. How do I need to do to learn this? But I will say also, I think that there's a benefit in not being purely technical, because it's not like I was so tied into developing my product and like, this is what I want to build and then like pushing stuff into it. Like I'm completely driven from the customer's perspective. I'm driven by service and meeting the needs of the customer. And then how do we need to adjust? Like when I talk to my tech guys, like, I'm like, well, this is what needs to happen. And they're like, ooh, we have to do this. I'm like, I don't know what needs to happen. That's your guys' deal. But like, this is what it needs to be from the consumer and also from our provider's perspective, right? So I'm not clouded by that. And I didn't realize that was such a thing until I got into the tech world. Yeah. And, talking to different people and talking to different founders and different people that are on teams. And so I think that that's been a huge benefit that I didn't have any idea it was even a thing.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that. I think when we think about starting a tech company in particular, there can be this initial belief that the most successful people are the ones who have the technical background, or the people who have solid roots in, let's say they're a senior software developer at like one of the FANG companies or whatever.
Right.
But I think the reality is they tend to be folks who struggle to own the big picture. I mean, even what you just said about being customer led and a customer driven kind of product growth, it does take some learning, some additional learning, where I feel like you're not, from your experience, it sounds like you weren't as like tied down to some of those more technical details. Like you're just like, we're just going to make this happen.
Yeah. I don't even know what those details are. Like, there's not even like anything that I can be tied to, because it doesn't even like exist in my world. It's just like, this is what I need to have happen for these people to have this experience. And what is the way that we can do that with the budget and the time that we have, and like the way the technology works.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a perspective that is so necessary in tech. I mean, it's necessary in all fields, but I think especially in tech, because it goes from it's going from we're creating a product, we're creating a technology, to we're helping our consumers or our customers transform in some way. We're helping them from point A to point B. And when you have that perspective shift, like you've experienced, or you had the benefit of not having the previous, viewpoint, things tend to open up a lot more in your business.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really good. Definitely. So, would you say that the lessons? I mean, you said you've been around since 2018, so you've had a couple of years as your company has grown, your platform has grown. Would you say that the lessons you were learning, in 2018, 2019, would you say that those are very similar lessons to even the lessons you've been learning in the 2020, 2021, 2023, 2022?
No.
Very different?
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about those?
Yeah. I mean, I think this goes back a little bit to just that establishing a baseline of how to do this all, right? So like in 2018 and 2019, a lot too, because that was like just sort of like, okay, what does this even look like? for how do we pull technology into this? What does that tech look like? How are we going to build it from a very like just from ground zero, right? We built everything. It's all React Native. It's just like we've done everything little piece by piece, and so and you know from the customer's perspective at that point, it was still so granular. Like I had my hands in every single like everything. Like I used to sit down with every single one of our new members in their house and have like an hour-long thing and give them like it was really, you know, and every single one of our pandas we would meet for an hour at the coffee shop, and you know, so it was just like it was really 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 micro in all of that. But it gave me a lot of learnings at that point that I was able to implement into our systems as we began to build our systems. So that was like the foundation. And then, you know, now I'm at the point where I'm very much like continuing to refine our systems, and because like now I'm trying to prep to start to scale, you know, and like really figuring out like what tools are out there, and that's always changing too. I mean, like that changes like every month. There's completely new things, you know, so it's like, what's the best thing? And then you make a decision and you're like, oh, then you introduce to this and you're like, oh my God, I should have done that. Oh, why did I just spend all this time and energy doing this? You know, but you don't know. So, you know, and also it's starting to think about really building my team, you know, and as I'm eventually going to be able to start bringing on people, like how does that all pull together? So now it's just like it's really just like this bigger putting all the pieces together and building the things on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, and building it in a way where it can scale, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And you know, and I think that we did a lot of things at the very, very beginning that obviously were not scalable, right? That's what you need to do. And then I feel like I got a little bit off course for a little bit of time. Like, I think I started to think a little too quickly about pulling stuff in to start scaling before I was really, really solid with the business model and all that sort of stuff. That actually, Techstars actually helped with that. Because when I went into Techstars, I thought that we would come out of it like, with new markets opened up and like expand. And then I got in there and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, there's a lot of stuff that we need to sort of break apart and put back together. Like we had the building blocks, but they needed to be restructured a little bit differently. Yeah. So we really kind of spent the end of last year and then the first, you know, part of this year restructuring some of that stuff. And so now it's like trying to just begin to build upon that. And now I feel like we need to start getting the stuff to really begin to scale. I feel like
see.
Building blocks are a lot stronger.
I gotcha. Would you mind, could you even share just like a tangible example? Like what was like one thing that you saw as you were going through Techstars that you're like, man, I gotta break this thing down and then reconstruct it. What was an example of that?
I mean, the biggest thing was like putting a monthly membership plan in place. We wanted to have, at the very beginning, we wanted to like reduce friction and get people on board. We didn't want to have any like monthly fees or anything like that. We just were like, just let's get people in and just, you know, not give them a reason to say no. But then it became very apparent, like having a monthly recurring membership fees is key, right? Recurring revenue. And like we have recurring revenue where people will use us every month, but it's not like a subscription that is just like built into Stripe that just bills every single month. So like that, having that structure put in place was something that we decided was really, really important. And that allowed us to, and also that will allow us to do just more clear KPIs and whatnot. Like it's very difficult for me to determine churn and things like that when people would just come, they'd use us and they wouldn't use us for a month or they wouldn't use us for 4 months, but then they'd come back. And I'm like, well, what point did they churn? Like measuring those KPIs is very difficult without having that sort of recurring membership thing put in place. And our margins, right? So it's like just having some revenue coming in that's not tied to services that we are also paying out on. So there's all these different things began to make sense. We need to build this, but we had to change up the way that our flow was in the app. We needed to do, you know, and my team is just part-time because I don't have money to bring people on full-time. So it was a very long process to do that. But then all of our marketing stuff had to change, and like, how do we structure our deal structures? And so it was a lot of different things. It was like all parts of the business had to change just from that one thing.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest example.
And it is so interwoven. It's not like you can just, this is the challenge, I think, especially in tech, but you can't just like say, oh, well, we're just going to change this one little feature, or we're going to change this one little thing. It has so many implications to the broader business model. As you were saying that, one question that was coming to my mind about the business model is, in this platform, are you essentially like the employer of a sort of the people who are the pandas, I guess? Or are they just independent contractors that work directly?
Yeah. So we're not, okay. So TaskRabbit is kind of like our biggest sort of competitor that is the closest to us. And so like TaskRabbit is a straight marketplace, right? The providers come in, they're like, I'm going to charge $100 an hour, and this is what I think. And TaskRabbit just takes a cut off of it, right? So that's like, and there's also standard, like that's a standard marketplace, right? So if you're like using templates to do financial modeling, they're like, well, what's your take? I'm like, well, that isn't what we do. So I can never use the templates. I always have to do everything on my own.
Yeah.
And so our pandas are still contractors. But we have a job posting that goes out. They apply. We have like pre-screening questions. We interview them, which that's one thing we're looking to figure out ways to scale that more quickly with like asynchronous video interviews and like coding questions and stuff like that. But so we bring them on. We're looking for a very particular person that wants to help, that has good flexibility, has good personal skills, has experience running a household. Right. So we find, and so our people that we get are really, really great. And it's wonderful because we have not had a problem finding people at all. There was like a 2-month period, like after COVID, when no one was working at all. But like, other than that, it's been great. And so we bring them on. So they are still contractors, but they have been really carefully vetted. And then when our users put in a request, they just pay whatever they pay. Right. So depending on the membership level, they pay the hourly rate of that membership level. And then the pandas just get paid different based on how long they've been with us. So it starts at $15, and then as they take on jobs, it goes up to $20. And then I've got, for our very best pandas, we've got $22 an hour for, they almost come in, they're almost like a support, like almost like middle management. They help with supporting other pandas and stuff. So it gives them an opportunity to make even more money, contribute to the business, contribute helping and sort of training and being mentors almost to other pandas. So it provides them an opportunity to sort of grow as well. So that's a big part of it as well.
That's great. I have a good friend of mine who, in order to kind of make ends meet on the side, she was delivering for, I'm not going to say the name of the place, but it was a delivery company, and she was a contractor, and I think she was coming in at like maybe $16 an hour. So I feel like it's a great starting point, and they don't have a huge commute because it's a hyper local gig economy.
It's very important for me to have a livable wage. And when I was doing my research at the very beginning, when I was looking at other gig economy things, the biggest complaint that people have is like, I drive an hour and a half, I've tried to find parking, and then it's like an hour job, then I have to drive an hour and a half home. Yes. And it's just like, and that was not okay with me. And one of our values is mutual respect. And so that runs through everything. Like, we respect our pandas. We respect our members. Our members have to respect our pandas. Like, I don't have time for someone to disrespect. Like, we don't need your business that bad, right? We're not just hired help that you can just treat. Like, like we're all part of the same community. We're here to help each other, and it's very important to me that our pandas are able to make a fair wage.
That's great, and having that core value at the center, I know is going to set you guys up for long-term success. So that's a great starting point. Now, I imagine with this platform, that it's a pretty capital intensive endeavor, right? So can you talk to me a little bit about like, what did funding for My Panda look like as you've progressed?
Yeah. So, fortunately we're not like creating hardware or something like that. We're like biomedical stuff. So we're not as intensive as some of those things. But yeah, so to develop the app was like our biggest outlay, and we did a friends and family round to do that. and got the money for that. And then basically we bootstrapped it up until Techstars, and then Techstars was my next was our first like actual investment from someone that wasn't a friend and family. And since then, I mean, I've raised a little bit more. Angel / friends and family. It's technically angels, like they're on safe notes and whatnot, but like they're just people that I know in my network that have given us a little bit of money, invested in, been really good supports actually. But that's also really important when you're bringing in money, like who's going to come in and be able to really support you and be helpful. So we've been really lucky to get some people on like that, and that's it. And so that's where we're at right now.
That's really good. Would you, and totally okay if you're not feeling comfortable with sharing this. I'm just always remembering back, and I say this I think almost every episode. I'm still remembering back to a listener who said that he really, really likes to listen to the numbers as much as possible, because a lot of times we talk about like just generic advice, but not very often do we talk about the nitty gritty of the numbers. Ballpark, where are you sitting, to date in terms of total investment from people other than yourself in the business?
Yeah. I think it's about 250,000.
That's pretty good. I'd say that's actually excellent to be, 5 years into this, have a platform fully operational for that much. I mean, that's excellent. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm pretty scrappy.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. So like, as you're going, I imagine, you're already in revenue because you've launched the platform. Yeah. Have you noticed, like what does that growth trajectory look like up to today? Because we're going to talk about like what the future looks like, but like what has been your growth trajectory since you launched back in 2019?
So, I mean, we've had steady growth. So this is kind of where my intention with this company and where I started with this company was not to be a fast speed growth thing, right? I wanted to have a business that was growing. And then like as 2020, 2021 started to happen, I'm like, okay, this actually, like, I actually probably need to start considering looking at doing venture, raising money and doing venture. And so then you start to look at things and you're like, okay, well, shoot, I need to like figure out a pathway to get to like $25 million in revenue, like in 3 to 5 years, like in order to do that. So then, and we're not on that trajectory. I mean, we've, raised $250,000 and have a full app and, like a lot of different things. And, so like we have not had the resources at all to even get close to that. But we've been steady, like, we're 300% above where we were in 2020.
That's great.
Yeah. But like we're not on the path to $25 million. Right. And so that, and there's been a big shift out in the venture capital world too recently, right? Up until 6 months ago, it was like growth at all costs. Don't worry about profitability. Just show growth. Just keep getting money. Keep getting rounds, and just like don't worry about profitability. Just get your growth going. So I really was like in that mindset because I'm like I just need to like just keep putting money into the company and just like growing it. I've shifted, and I think a lot of people have shifted to like, okay, wait a minute, slow down, and like figure out what you need to do to get to profitability, to get sustainable growth, and then see about growing, scaling quickly. So that has been a shift that I've just been going through really the last few months, and it's different because you have your projections, you have your budget, you have your roadmap, you have your everything one way, and you have your mindset and the things you're building and the things people you're talking to and everything you're doing is like with this. And then also it's like, wait a minute, okay, how am I going to build this to be a profitable, sustainable business? So that's where I'm at right now. I don't even know if I don't know if I've I went way off track from your
No,
question.
that's right in line, and it actually gives a nice little segue into the next question, which you'd already touched on it a little bit, but you'd shared a little bit about your experience recently with VC. I know that you've been had been entertaining potentially VC investment. Can you talk to us about what that experience has been like recently? And I don't know if it's within the last 6 months or if it's been even before then, but just share a little bit about that experience and what are some of the conclusions you've come to recently?
Yeah. So, again, like talk about the learning curve, right? So this is not a world that I was at all familiar with at all. So I kind of was just going based on what I was learning in different situations, advice that I'd be getting from different people, and what I should be doing. There's several things that, well, I mean, first of all, we know this isn't even my experience. This is just like facts that women and other people of color, like VCs don't give them money. Like it's just 1.9% of the money went to women last year. And there's a lot more than 1.9% of women that are founders. So there's a bias, which everyone knows, and that's not like anything that I'm telling anybody that's new and groundbreaking. I do think that one thing that I really learned is that early stage it means different things to different people. I was like post revenue, I've been showing growth, I had traction, I'd been making changes, but and going to early stage investors, and this is VCs, but also angel groups and stuff too. I mean, this is not just VCs. This is just like the investment world. And a couple $100,000 in revenue, annual revenue that's too early for a lot for most investors, which was a big learning curve. Because, when I'm talking to people in my world, everyone's like, oh, you're post revenue, you're gonna be great. You're gonna be no problem. And then I go and I'm appointment after appointment and no, too early. And then the frustration too is like, well, once you've scaled it to a couple other markets and we've seen that you can actually do this, then we'll be right. And I have no idea how I can do that with no revenue, like with no resources. Like I can't do it. And I've bootstrapped it enough, but my savings are pretty, you only have so many savings. You only have so many times you can go back to your parents to ask them to, and so the frustration level with that is very, very hard. And I get it that, investors are in it to make money and they want to de-risk. But I think that the de-risking is there's also different understandings of what that is. Like I consider myself very safe. I'm resilient as hell. I'm not giving up, obviously. I continue to grow. I continue to solve problems. I have a wide range of experiences that are backing me up. I've got happy customers. I've got repeat customers. I've got to me, I'm like, I feel like I'm very safe. But when you look at it from the optics of what investors are looking at, there's a lot of other things that they don't consider safe. So
that's right.
It's just a lot of different definitions of what different things are, I think, and what people understand.
Well, and perfect example is you think about the macroeconomic climates that we're in right now. For you and I, we might feel the pressure of raising interest rates when we consider whether or not we're going to, take out this new home mortgage to buy a new home, where we see the interest rate has raised since the last time we bought our house. But by and large, we're not as affected as individual consumers. VCs, on the other hand, feel that pressure a ton. So what they considered risk or risky has now shifted so dramatically as the interest rates have hiked up. And so, to your point, some of the stuff, it feels so unrealistic because it seems so untethered from the common, the everyday person's experience.
Yeah, very much so. And I really consider myself an everyday person. I'm just I'm that is what I am. And I can't even fake like I'm not,
right?
I am. And so that's my experience. And that is also my customers are, and my providers are, and that's my world. And that's so, and so that's kind of where I'm at now a little bit. I'm like, okay, I'm just stepping back. I probably will end up raising VC money eventually. Cause my goals are big for this company. I'm not sure the timing on that. But right now I'm just dialing back and just getting I'm going out and I'm doing way more events. I'm getting feet on the ground. I have a whole new batch of referral cards I printed up. Like, I'm just getting down like the nitty gritty, like bare basics of just growing revenue and just working towards profitability, trying to raise a little money from just some angels right now to just, give us a little bit of fuel to just do some of these real basic things and get us in a much better place. So we have a little bit more solid metrics. So when we do eventually go and get venture money, we'll be, farther along with what they are wanting.
I think that's brilliant. So you touched on it again a little bit, but the growth plan that you had, if you were to get VC investment, how is that different, or what does that look like practically different, VC money investment versus just continuing on the track that you're on right now, bootstrapping, without that VC investment? What's the difference?
Are you talking about timeline or just like
so a little bit of timeline,
items?
but a little bit of timeline, a little bit of action items. Practically, what is the difference in terms of how you grow without VC money?
So we're just not going to scale geographically nearly as fast. With the, if I had been able to raise, $1.5 million earlier this year, we would already be saturated throughout Atlanta and like probably already opening up another market at this point, and then probably 2 to 3 more next year. Like, once we get those systems down, like the systems are close to being down. I just need a little bit more to just like streamline it and just get it baked in. And then we just do the same thing in different places, right? I have people reaching out. I had someone reach out to me from Phoenix a month or 2 ago. She's like, I found out about you and you're not out here. Can I open up? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I would love to, but like, I just don't have the resources to do that. So, as far as like the just quick geographic reach is just way slowed down.
Makes sense.
And then also, I've got one other big part of our model that we're doing like a B2B2C play, which right now we're just straight B2C, just a consumer. But we are, we are working on our first contract for this for next year, which is awesome. I just finalized that deal last week, offering our services to employers to offer as employee benefits.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. So it's, and starting out like small and medium-sized businesses that, it's not super expensive. The way we have the deal structured, it can be as little as $90 per employee per month. Get them a membership, get them a couple hours. And it really addresses that pain point of like, attracting and retaining top talent, helping employees stress, burnout, keeping women in the workforce, getting people back in the office, or helping people be more efficient if they're working from home. There's so many different things. And there's concierge benefits available. A lot of like bigger companies have these like larger, but mostly it's like come to the office. Like, they can do stuff, pick up your dry cleaning from the office and stuff. There's not really anything like ours that you can go in and have your
There's
person.
nothing. But like, as you say that, I'm like, well, that's a brilliant idea. Because I'm thinking to myself, man, even $90 a month. Now, I'm an accountant, and I've been in corporate America before, and I can tell you how much benefits cost. $90 a month, that's like how much they spend maybe around there for transit. If you got like a Metro Transit pass or something like that in your local, if you're in a big city, and you can sponsor some type of commuter benefits or whatever.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah. And, and 2 hours a month isn't a ton of support, but it's something. And they have the membership, so they get the discount, right. Or you could do 20 hours a month and it would be a few $100, but like, that. So anyway, there's a lot of things that we have been working on getting in place to do that. So we are actually like right now trying to launch a couple pilots with which this is a call out to you or any of your listeners. I'm trying to find Atlanta-based companies, so just only in Atlanta, that want to get in on. We're getting a couple pilots going through the end of the year just to help us like refine our systems. But I have one contract signed for starting 2024. Well, we haven't quite signed the contract yet, but we're working on the details of it to provide things to their people with a few hours. So that is really exciting. I'm going to be able to do that. But like, if I had VC funds, I could get an entire sales team and just like go out and get thousands of contracts from small and medium-sized businesses and just like do it. This will be probably 1 or 2 a month, with me just going out there and being the only one. But that's okay. That'll be great, and then we also have some technology stuff that, obviously there's some UX UI stuff, which is what I need angel funds for right now. Just like some basic things, just to we just need to get the flow a little better in the app. It's not tons of money, but it's stuff that is money that I need. But then I've got some bigger plans to help with I want to create a productivity tool that will integrate our systems with people's calendar and or to-do lists, and basically give suggestive feedback for hey, it looks like your daughter's birthday party is coming up next weekend. Would you like us to order your birthday cake? So to analyze and be able to give suggestions for how we can help, and then just have it be very simple, swipe right, yes, get My Panda to do it. So that integration and the ease of use, and also the predictive sort of suggestive technology, which with the way AI is right now, that's going to be the load is a lot lighter now than it was when I first thought about this, before AI was really that much of an idea. Or it was an idea, but it wasn't as common. So anyway, so there's a lot of stuff like that. With VC funds, I'd be able to just develop all that, and it would make a huge difference.
Huge splash. But arguably, one of the benefits about taking the approach that you're taking right now is that you get to try these things out in a smaller scale. Whereas, a lot of times you get the VC funds, you could go full steam ahead in this one direction and not really know if that's actually the right direction. So I think this is actually a perfect example of where bootstrapping can actually be the breeding ground of a lot of really unique innovation. I'm still kind of blown away by that idea of partnering with businesses. That's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm very excited about it. It's just going to be great. Because who else is going to be more invested in the success, their people being more productive and successful and happy than the employer? Their families, sure. But so it's going to be, it's great. I'm really excited about it.
Oh man. And I have this weird feeling this isn't the end of the innovation for you in what you're doing with My Panda. So.
My mind is always going. My team is always oh my God, okay, I know, but that's a great idea, but can we just focus on this one thing? That's part of it.
And that's a part of the entrepreneurial drive. So as we round out the episode, would you mind just giving us some advice and specifically talk to somebody who's just starting off in this space? Maybe it's another non-technical founder, or maybe it is a technical founder. What advice would you give that person just starting out?
Don't stop. Just keep going. Of course, at some point you might need to stop, but don't just get down and be I'm done with this. Especially if it's something you believe in, push through the hard times. But then the next biggest thing is make sure you have a support system around you. And more than likely, that's got to be other founders or CEOs or people that get it, because your support system can't necessarily be your friends that are not founders, because they just don't get it. When my friends ask me, how's it going? I'm just I look at them, I'm I can't even, fine, it's going fine. Because there's so much. So really making sure that you've got people that understand what it means to build a business and create a business and the struggles, and have a solid support. Because you cannot do this alone. It's the same sort of thing, right? And just keep going. Don't give up.
Yeah. Well, I certainly resonate with that. And even what you said, it's you talk with family, you talk with friends who aren't necessarily founders, who aren't necessarily entrepreneurs. And there's always going to be some level where there's not really they don't quite get what you mean when you say.
And they want to, want to, and they're supportive and they're great, but it's just, to try to explain some of the stuff to us, it's just going to take too much time.
Yeah. It's how do you explain the whole, I am really getting out there and trying to grow the revenue, but it's it's a different type of exhaustion than you've ever felt in your entire life.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, that is really, really good advice and sage wisdom. You've been here, you're in this right now. This is good advice, especially for people just starting out. Where could people go to follow your journey, your story with My Panda, or even get in contact with you if they had questions, follow-up questions?
Yeah. So, so mypandaapp.com is our website. You can download the app from there. I will say, if you go to the App Store to try to find My Panda, there is a ton of stupid little panda apps. Sometimes it's hard to find us. There's like all these stupid little games. So going to our website, mypandaapp.com, is really the easiest. We are on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and I just set up a TikTok account. We're going to have to do that. But My Panda app is I am there. You can find me on LinkedIn, Tamara Lucas. LinkedIn is really where I do most of my personal stuff and following along. I'm involved in a lot of events and things like that too, to help support women, and so I'm always doing things like that. So following me personally on LinkedIn is always a good thing. And email. I guess you can email me at tamara@mypandaapp.com. TAMARA.
Perfect. Well, Tamara, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been enlightening for me. I love hearing the story, and I love that you're still in it, right? It's not like you're looking back 15 years and you're like, I've figured it all out. You're in the middle of it. So I think your perspective it's fresh and it's realistic, and that's exactly what we need in this entrepreneurial community, especially for tech companies and non-technical founders. You've come to the table with a lot of good wisdom, and I look forward to all my listeners hearing what you have to say.
Thank you for having me. It really was a good time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and thank you all to our listeners. If you found value in the podcast today, please share it with your friends and subscribe for future episodes. Also, don't forget to leave us a review, because it helps other people find and hear inspiring stories just like Tamara's today. And if you are a founder of a software development agency, or you know somebody who is, and you'd like to share something exciting that you're up to with our audience, drop me a line at tony@equip.com. That's ACCQUIP.com.